Hello and welcome to another edition of the SpareTime Podcast with me, Nigel Marston, and him,
Ben.
And it's sponsored by ADR Wear, which we appreciate very much for doing that. Now, tonight or today, however you want to put it, podcast is quite special because in the UK it's midnight and in South Korea it's 8 a.m. in the morning. And in South Korea, we have our guest this evening, Parker Bohn III. Welcome, Parker.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me, guys.
So you're in South Korea for the World Youth Championship. So how's it going out there?
It's going pretty good so far. I know that the boys had single competition the other day, and boys and girls. Obviously, they're all here representing Junior Team USA. And unfortunately, the boys didn't fare too well. A couple of them just missed the cut for the top 16. And we had one girl that actually finished and received a bronze medal, Annalise O'Brien. So she bowled rather well. And in the doubles, Annalise and her partner have advanced to the gold medal round, which is really, really cool. And I'll say right behind that, or equivalent, our son, Brandon, and his partner, Jake Boxty, advanced to the gold medal round in the boys double. So that's pretty exciting. Looking forward to that. That's going to take place on Thursday. Team competition, both men's and girls, advance to the top 16 for match play. That's going to be here starting actually in about an hour.
Oh, okay, that's good. I mean, the standard of play seems to be pretty high in the tournament this year.
It seems that way. You know, there's a lot of good competition. When I look at the bowlers that are representing the countries from all around the world, it certainly seems like the scores are on the higher side if guys are lined up. But I'll tell you what, if they're not lined up, unfortunately, they don't quite see the lane and the scores are low.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic privilege to be able to represent your country at world level. It's something that so many people aspire to, and not everybody gets the opportunity to do.
Absolutely. You know, there's no more pride than representing your country and having your country's colors on your back or on your jersey when you're going down there to roll your ball down a lane. And, you know, I say this to your son's benefit. He's sitting right there next to you there. And I hope and cross my fingers, and I'm going to pray for him too, that opportunity comes up before he turns to be an adult. Because you're not rolling your ball down your lane here because you're receiving money. You're rolling your ball down your lane here for the pride of representing your country.
Yeah. I mean, no amount of money can compensate for that. And you know, for the girls and boys there that managed to get a medal, especially a gold, I mean, that's just, you know, it's a memorable achievement and something they're going to remember for the rest of their lives.
So yes. I'd just like to put it out there. If I'm looking over there, my cat's currently trying to claw the door down. It's really loud. So if I look over there, it's because my cat's attacking the door.
Well, that's okay.
We're not going to let him in, so that's fine. So, Parker, we were just watching your son's YouTube channel, your son Justin's YouTube channel earlier on this evening, and you're doing a YouTube video where you each had 10 balls and you were bowling different balls in each frame. Mm-hmm. And we noticed that you were it appeared that you were in your own training center. Is that correct?
Yes, we have a training center. You know, the jersey I have on tonight, obviously I've got Brunswick on me. I've been with Brunswick forever, but we did open a training center, Bohn's Elite Training, or what we call Rev Rates. Same concept there. We have a 5-lane facility inside the bowling center that I grew up in. Now, I don't own that bowling center at all, but it's where everything started for me when I was your son's age. I was probably 8 or 10 years old when I got out on the lanes, and I enjoyed it ever since. So the owner of the bowl is a very big proponent on bowlers getting better. And when we brought this concept to him, the idea behind it, he was all on board 100%. When I say that, and this is for everybody to know, I am not going to take anything away from Kegel, which is down in Florida, and I'm not going to take anything away from USBC headquarters, because I believe that they're the foremost premier for learning capabilities, and the wealth of knowledge they have is endless behind them. But for those folks in our area, or let me even use your area, if they're coming abroad and they go to New York, we're only 1 hour south of New York City. Everybody in the world knows where New York City is. So you can come down there and one of our coaches will be happy to get you on the lanes and look at you. And I'll say a fair amount of times, if the time permits, it could be me.
Well, we know about the Kegel Center and the USBC. So, it's interesting. What sort of what courses and what type of training do you offer at your center?
A lot of them are one-on-one training. Okay, you can come in depending what level you're on or who you're looking at. We have a variety of coaches that we have available, and if you're a beginner bowler, well, you can have basically any coach that we have there. And the more advanced that you get, or the higher up you go on the line, then we're going to make sure that we bring in a coach that's going to be able to take care of you. We can do a group. Don't get me wrong. We've done plenty of group sessions, and some of our group sessions, I'll say it bluntly, have, let's say Walter A. Williams comes in and he holds a clinic that he's going to hold for a couple of hours with a few people. I've done a couple of different group sessions with some of our other coaches. Tony Balillo happens to be the lead instructor for the Dick Ricker Bowling Academy. Okay, so he comes in there and he works with people. Occasionally, we have other pros. Oscar Palermo, believe it or not, he's been in our facility and given out a couple of lessons, when he's coming through town there. So we have a wide variety of almost anybody, and our facility is not closed to just our coaches. I will use you and your son right there. If you want to come in and train your son in our facility, you can make a lane reservation and come in at any given time with whatever pattern you want, and that lane will be waiting for you when you walk through the door.
I think the last thing I want is you to coach me.
Yeah, he wouldn't want me to coach me. That's for sure, yeah. So where is that, in Jackson Township?
It's in Howell, New Jersey.
Howell, New Jersey.
Yeah, it's maybe about an hour and 15-minute ride from downtown New York City.
Mm-hmm.
So
do you have a website?
You can go to revrates.vip, REVRATES.V as in Victor, IP as in Parker, and you'll end up right there.
Okay, well, we're going to put that in the comments section below this video. But that's really interesting because there's not a lot of top quality training centers around, and certainly in the UK we don't really have anything at all. So it's good to know there's a variety over there in the US for people who are in the US or people who's not in the US who wants to make the effort to go there. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, a lot of facilities, they're in for the entertainment. They want you to come in and give them your credit card, and you're going to go out there and bowl and have fun. And when you're done, they'll tell you how much you owe. Well, we took our machines out. We put 4 brand new GSX machines in, Brunswick machines, along with, believe it or not, a string pin machine. We have an odd lane. There's a wall that's built directly down lane 6, so lane 6 is no longer in use. But the odd lane, we decided to put a string pin machine because more than likely, I am not going to bowl a tournament on string pin lanes, but your son growing up is going to bowl an endless amount of events on them. So we want the kids or adults that are, young adults that are in that competition to get used to bowling on string pins so that you understand the pinfall. You don't get caught up in, did you see them go up and down? Did you see them the way that they're on the lanes? And then at the end of the tournament, they go, hey, thanks for coming today. And you go, what do you mean? Well, you watched the pins go up and down and you never paid attention to your ball reaction. That's why we put that in. And then along with that, we put the Brunswick Sync scoring in with all of those machines at any given time, morning, noon, or night, or any pattern. You can punch in any spare combination, and in 30 seconds, it'll be at the other end for as many times as you want to shoot it.
Well, that's a good facility. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, the string pins. You've done a couple of tournaments on string pins, and it's a completely different type of experience. But as you said, it maybe the thing coming for the future, and it's all because of finance and the bowling centers have to be able to make a profit and they're in business. So it's great to see somebody who who's able to put a center in there to concentrate on the serious bowler. I mean, how do you? Bowling must have changed. You've been in bowling a long time now. It must have changed a lot. What are some of the biggest and most important changes you've seen since you started?
Well, I mean, you know, I'm going to go back when I first started out on tour in 1985. Okay. We had urethane bowling balls, urethane, plastic, obviously extreme soft rubber. You saw the Johnny Petraglia LT48 was still a very popular ball back then. And then things slowly transformed right into the early 1990s when reactive resin came out, or resin in general came out. And that really changed how much the strength of a bowling ball going through the pins, how much it changed direction. Then you had proactive balls that came out in the early 2000 time frame. Once again, they had particle that was in the bowling ball. Although you couldn't feel it, your ball would certainly pick up and grab on the lane itself, regardless of how much oil was there. The ball would actually gravitate to the lane and therefore pick up and have the right energy to go through the pins. And then somewhere in that early 2010 time frame, what's the latest, greatest? And I have no idea how your son bowls, but the two-handed measure came on board. Okay. Oscar Palermo and Jason Belmonte together, they transformed the bowling world as we know it today, much like Mark Roth did back in the 70s with his power and what he did to the pins themselves. These two guys, and Jason has taken it to a much higher level, obviously, but they've transformed the game. So two-handed bowling is here, and it's, well, I'll say it bluntly, it's here to stay.
And Ben is a recent convert to two-handed bowling, as I'm sure he'll tell you about it.
Ben, you and my son have something in common, because Justin, you've watched his YouTube. He was a one-handed bowler up till about 4 or 5 years ago. So yeah, that's good.
I went two-handed like 9 months ago, maybe 8, 9 months ago. So it's definitely a great change. I mean, for me, I can do things that I never could have done one-handed. Like, I get near enough at every tournament. People go, "You were crap one-handed, but you're quite good two-handed." You know, so I think it's a big change. But if you can make it, it's definitely worth it. Now, I want to stay on the topic of, you know, of changes. And when I found out you were coming on the podcast, like, I went straight into my pro shop, and I basically lived there. And I was like, look who's coming on my podcast. And they were like, oh, you know, you need to ask him one question. So my pro shop guy said when he was younger, back in the 90s and 2000s, there's a lot of negativity about how much advantage left-handers got because of, you know, obviously less people bowling on the left-hand side. And he's wondering how it translates into today's games with the changes of the equipment and, you know, use of asymmetric patterns. Do you think that maybe left-handers now are at more of a disadvantage than an advantage like they used to be?
You know, on a typical house shot, and I'll say this, a typical house shot is put out by your bowling centers around the world, and it's called the entertainment pattern. And let's just put my hands here, and if you can imagine, outside of my knuckles, there's no oil at all, or very little oil. Okay, and obviously we can take and we can put some sort of shape to it there, but definitely something like that, the easier the lane condition is, it's going to be more advantage to the left side because our side's going to hold on much longer. It's not going to turn down and go backwards. But when you look at the way that things have gone on now and the asymmetrical patterns or the offsets, and you start moving patterns by a board or two, or you put a little bit more oil somewhere, a little bit less oil somewhere else, now they've realized that you can start to even things out. I believe now that it's more fair than it ever was, number one. Number two, the more challenging the patterns get, there is no advantage to being a left-hander there. Because if we don't figure it out, it's not going to change. And if you can figure a little bit on the right side, or at least hang in there, you certainly know that the bowling balls are going to change the pattern rapidly, that then you're going to have something to look forward to. So in my own mind, I believe that things are evened out now more so than ever.
Mm-hmm. So you've been in bowling for many years now. How did it all start? Well, you know, I mean, a lot of people started bowling because the parents took them to a local bowling center and got interested in it. Is that how the journey started for you?
It certainly did. My mom took me to the local bowling center when I was 8 years old. And needless to say, it was something that I truly loved to do. And I pulled on her pant leg to take me back there ever since. And as I speak, I literally just turned 61 years old just a few days ago. I still bowl today in the same center that I grew up in when I was 8 and or 10 when I joined my first league.
And at what point did you realize that this is something maybe more than just a bit of fun? Where was that sort of moment when you thought, this could go somewhere?
Well, when I got out of junior leagues, I actually stayed one more year. I didn't get out when I was 18. I stayed there until I was 19. And then when I turned 19, I started to open up my doors and bowl some other scratch tournaments and events that were outside of my immediate circle. And I realized that I'm putting up $100 and I've got $300 or $400 in my pocket. Well, who doesn't like more money? Everybody likes more money, And then I'd go to a tournament a little bit further away, and maybe it cost me the same amount or a little bit more for travel or staying in a hotel. But I'm still putting more in my pocket at the end than I was shelling out. And it didn't always happen that way. But in the long run, I started to realize, wow, I got a chance that I can actually do this at a much higher level. And I kept taking it one step higher, one step higher, one step higher. And the dream was eventually to go out on tour. And you're going to laugh, but I tell people this all the time. When I went out on tour, my dream was to say, when I was all done, I wanted to be a one-time PBA champion. Who would have known that I'd have what I have today?
Yeah, I mean, it's a relatively small ambition compared to what you actually achieved. So when you won your first PBA title, what was it a sort of an addiction? Sort of, no, I want to do this again. Was it something like that drove you?
It did. It drove me to want more. As soon as I acquired the first one in 1987, immediately my new goal was to win again and then figure out a way at that time to earn $100,000 in a given year on the PBA tour. And 2 years later, I actually acquired that. I earned my second title in the late part of the year in the fall. And when I earned my second title, that propelled me for the first time in my career over $100,000 in earnings. So that was pretty ecstatic.
What is it? What do you think it is that drives you to the level of success that you've had? What is it that moved you from your first PBA title to your next one and to your next one and so on? What is your motivation?
I think anything that I do, especially for bowling, because I really, truly love that. I want to be the best that I can be. So I always try to put some sort of obtainable goal. Okay. Don't get me wrong. I am not going to take anything away from Tiger Woods being one of the greatest golfers of all time, or Michael Schumacher being one of the greatest race car Indy drivers of all time. But I looked at it to where I wanted to go out and win a title, and that was achievable. If I worked hard enough at it, I felt like I could get there. And then after I won that title, then the new goal was to win a title, like I just said, in $100,000. Well, after I achieved that in 1989, then my goal went even higher. I raised the bar. I wanted to be PBA Player of the Year. Now, to be that, you can look around you all on the lanes, and a wide variety of bowlers, Ben, that you've seen throughout the years. Well, when you get out at any given PBA tournament, there's 75 to 100 players that are all capable of winning that title that week. And to be the best for an overall season, you have to oust them the vast majority of the time. So my new goal was to be Player of the Year, and it drove me and propelled me to want to get better. That meant that I had to work on the lanes harder than I ever did before. And I didn't realize that when I was your age, Ben, but I realized that obviously through some of the successes that I had out on tour.
I mean, one thing that's pretty clear from listening to you is that you have a certain level of belief that is pretty rare.
Yeah, I've always believed that. My first telecast in 1987, I bowled for the title and lost. Actually, my first TV show, you're going to laugh. The very first TV show I ever made, I shot 245, and it was good enough to tie. I didn't even get the win. So I had a 9 and 10th frame roll off here. But then when I lost the title that day, the reporter asked me if I was upset. And I said, no, I'm not upset. I said, it's just going to drive me to get further. I've bowled for the title once, and I believe in my heart and my head that I can get there again. 3 months later, I won my first title. Now let's role play forward to 1998. In 1998, I bowled 299 on TV. The reporter asked me, goes, were you upset that you didn't bowl 300? I said, I was upset or hurt for the fans. The fans are the ones that want to see the success on TV. Okay, we have a chance to do something, or I had an opportunity to do something that most fans don't do at all their entire life. And I told the reporter, I'm a firm believer. I got there once. I'll get there again. The very next year, I bowled 300 on TV. So if you believe in yourself and you trust your ability, then you can accomplish anything that you want to in life.
So, I mean, the mindset that you've obviously got, I mean, you've got an unshakable belief, and it's not something, it's so openly obvious that that's the belief. And I think that's why you've got to where you've got, because it's not something that I see in a lot of bowlers. I mean, we've had so many professional bowlers on, and we've been fortunate to have this, like, loads of professional bowlers on the podcast, but no one so far has come on with you can just tell that they genuinely believe that, you know, they can do whatever they want, and that they will. Where does this belief come from? Did you develop it? Is it something you've always had, or how did it come about?
Well, I think it's something that mentally you have to be strong. Okay. Our sport doesn't require you to be physically strong, but you have to be mentally strong and want to overcome the challenges. And the key is, I just said, you have to want to overcome the challenges. It's easy to sit back and have somebody hand you a new bowling ball, or have somebody hand you an easy lane condition. But does that necessarily teach you something? No. You have to have the drive within you, within your heart, that you want to go out there and achieve success, and you want to be better than everybody else. And that drive, I mean, I'll say it bluntly, I've lost many, many more times than I'll ever win. But the drive to make me want to come back and be better than I was yesterday, that's something that you have to develop inside of your own heart.
So how did you convey that belief, that mindset to your sons? And because obviously they're now playing in the World Championship, and you know they're getting to carve out their own niche. So how as a parent did you manage to convey that into your that level of belief and winning mindset to your sons?
The biggest thing is to try to realize when you make the difference between making a good shot and a bad shot. Okay, Ben, I'm going to say it this way: you and me together, and I don't know if your dad bowls, okay, but you and me together have both missed a 5-pin.
Yeah,
I guarantee it. I know I have, and I'm sure you have too.
Yeah.
But yet we've both had that opportunity to strike out in the 10th frame. Now, whether you're striking out just because you're having fun with your friends, or you're striking out because it's something meaningful and you actually win the game or the tournament or the match, whatever it is, you have to believe in yourself that you can. And I can tell you right now, if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else is going to believe in you. So I try to instill that into my own kids. If you make a mistake, just be real with yourself. That's all. Honestly, it happens. But you have to move along and try to make sure you learn something by that, so you don't do that same exact mistake the next time.
I mean, you've been successful over many decades now, since when you started back in 1985. How do you keep that level of performance up that you've done for what's it now, 24 nearly 40 years? How do you keep that level of performance up?
I think some of it, believe it or not, is my kids. My kids drive me to be better. I will never have the amount of power that they have. Okay. And when I say that, when I'm on the lanes and I'm bowling them, and you can watch that in our podcast that I do with Justin, or if I do them with Brandon, I'm not going to go easy on them. I'm going to make them work for it. I don't have a problem with trying to teach them along the way, but it's still the ball in my hand or the ball in their hand. And they have to figure out how they're going to do that to actually go out there and not just beat me, but learn along the way so that they can be successful away from just bowling dad.
Did you have a natural interest in bowling, or was it sort of did you sort of persuade them to become interested in bowling?
It's something that they wanted within themselves. Both of our boys have wanted to be around bowling ever since they could start to walk. You know, they were the little, I'll say little kids, or in your neck of the woods, the little lad that would go up to the bowling circle there and just swirl the balls around the ball return and have fun that way. That was not the case, believe it or not, with our daughter. Our daughter, she would go near the bowling circle where the bowling balls were, or she'd be at the scoring console hitting the buttons, you know, trying to see what would pop up on the screen. But every time I'd say to her, do you want to bowl? She'd go, oh no. And she'd walk out of the bowling center or walk out of the bowling circle. So, and then one time she went to Junior Gold, which coincidentally is going on right now. This was the first day for Junior Gold in America. And she goes, you know, I could beat these girls. And we looked right at her and we said, well, you can do that, but you got to start to bowl. She goes, you know what? When I go home, I'm going to go do that. Keep in mind, guys, she never bowled more than 3 or 4 games an entire year. And the minute she went home from Junior Gold, she put a ball in her hand, or she looked at me and said, Dad, can you drill me a ball? And she went out there and started bowling all on her own. Well, I looked at the scores this morning. She bowled exceptionally well the first round. She's in 3rd place right now, or at least after a couple of squads at Junior Gold in the girls U18 division. And I'm going to cross my fingers. She's in Detroit. I'm over here in Korea, but I'm going to cross my fingers when I get back to the stateside there that I can go watch her bowl match play Friday night into Saturday morning.
You've definitely got the Midas touch, I think.
So I mean, like we said, you've been bowling sort of nearly 40 years, and you know you've won 35 PBA titles. You know, I think you're still bowling PBA 50 now, no?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's definitely more titles to come. I'm just curious, what keeps you going, because bowling's changed a lot. Like you said, the way you know, there's a bigger emphasis on the mental game, because I could be wrong here, because I wasn't about in these, you know, 20 years ago, I wasn't around, you know, and I don't think there's ever been as much as an emphasis on mental game as there has been now. You know, what have you been doing to keep you competitive when, you know, people who throw it differently, you know, like your sons, like EJ, like Anthony, what have you been getting up to keep yourself at the top level?
Well, the biggest thing is, you know, and Ben, I'm going to look directly at you when I say this. I don't care when you're on the lanes. Someone is going to hook the ball more than you. Someone's going to hook the ball less than you. Someone's going to be a little bit better spare shooter than you. Someone's going to be a little bit less than you. Okay. Maybe you're the guy that really sees the lane, and there's a couple of other guys that are trying to see the lane as good as you do. Okay. But no matter what happens, and no matter how good you are, because I've watched the best in the world struggle before, you're going to have peaks and you're going to have valleys. It's going to go up and down. And you have to be mentally sharp to understand where those valleys are so they don't become giant pitfalls. Okay? Keep your valley a little bit on the higher side. And then all of a sudden, when you start to soar with the Eagles, when you got 5 or 6 in a row, you've got a really obtainable score that everybody's looking and going, I want to be like Ben. Mm-hmm. So no matter how much bowling ball EJ Tackett or Jason Belmonte throw down the lane, because I bowled against both of them, okay, and obviously thousands of other players too, I definitely tip my hat for the amount of ball that they have and what their ball does to the pins. It's pretty cool, but I still believe in me. And if I make 10 of the best shots I can, well, 12 frames in bowling, but if I make 10 of the best passes at the ball that I can, I don't care who I'm bowling against or how big they are or how much ball they have. I believe I can overcome any challenge.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we'll flick back to when you won your first PBA title. What was that experience like? I mean, obviously, you know, you bowled on TV before, but, you know, winning on TV is a different feeling. And I've bowled on TV. I've been lucky enough to bowl a few times on sort of on telecasts and, you know, live streams and TVs. And it's such a different environment to bowl in, you know, just your normal blocks. You know, how did you sort of handle the pressure and handle the different environment, knowing what's at stake?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that you can practice all you want, but nobody plans or practices to bowl on TV. So when you're sitting there and you're trying to figure everything out, the thing that you need to do is just focus on you and the pair of lanes that you're bowling on. Okay. More importantly, the one lane that you're bowling on that given shot, because you know the lanes could be subtly different. Maybe the ball you're using hooks more or less than the ball you used before, but it's all about you, your practice session or your regiment, and the lane that you're bowling on. And if you've practiced it enough times, you're going to make a confident pass. And if you think positive with whatever you're bowling on, forget the TV lights. Just go out and imagine you're the only one in the bowling center bowling on that lane at that time. Mm-hmm. Let everybody else watch it.
Yeah. I mean, you've got 6 PBA scoring records, which to have 1 is mental, but to have 6, it's different. It's a different story. So did you use the same mentality to get them? And what does having 6 scoring records mean to you?
Well, I mean, scoring records, they only come along with your success that you're having at a given time on the lanes. Okay. I don't plan to have a scoring record when I'm out there. I go out there just to try to repeat a shot to the best of my ability. And the numbers all speak for themselves when you're done at a given block or at the end of a given tournament. So, it's like winning a tournament. That was my first goal, to say I won a PBA title. And then the numbers that you achieve along the way, more titles, more victories, let me say player of the year, knock on wood, some of those things that happen, they all happen one ball at a time.
Mm-hmm. But now you're in the PBA 50. How much different is competing in the PBA 50 from the main PBA? And what differences do you find, and what difference does it make to you as a bowler?
It's funny you say that, because we talk about that from time to time out here. The regular tour, you look around and like we talked about, there's 75 to 100 guys, maybe more than that can win at any given week. You know that everybody is going to bring everything they have to the table. And what the youth, I'll say those 20 and 30-year-olds, what they bring to the table, the power they possess, the speed they get, the rev rate that they have, it's incredible what their ball does going through the pins. Where I watch my ball, it doesn't quite do that anymore, okay? But now when I go out on the PBA 50 tour and I look around, I go, here's a bunch of guys that are really having a lot of fun. Some of them have bowled on the tour for 10 or 15 years. A lot of them have had a really good career at home working for a business, or maybe they're the CEO or they were president of a company, or maybe they had a workforce that worked underneath them. But now they've gotten to that retirement age and they still have the heart. They want to go out and bowl on tour. So they're doing it under an atmosphere that they're enjoying themselves. Their livelihood is not on the line. They don't need to win or achieve a lot of success because they're trying to pay some of their household bills or their next car payment at home. They're out there to enjoy themselves. But I can tell you this right now, it's pretty easy, or fairly easy, to get to the cash window in the PBA 50 tour. It is very hard still to win on the PBA 50 tour, because when you get to that final 16 guys and you look around left and you look around right, 3/4 of them, if not more in some cases, have all won and had success on the PBA tour. So you've got a big task in front of you if you think you're going to just walk over them.
I mean, we were talking to Chris Barnes about this in the previous podcast, and I asked him, how did he, with a lot of these two-handed bowlers being younger guys at the moment, in 20, 25 years time, they're going to be in the PBA 50, and two-handed bowling is a lot more physically demanding. So how do you think that's going to transition from the normal PBA to the PBA 50 when the guys are two-handed bowlers?
I don't think anybody really knows the answer to that one. Walter Ray has obviously dabbled with the two-handed version, but he hasn't done it very long, and he doesn't do it every day. It's just he goes out there to try to have fun with it, and he'll tell you he's not as sharp two-handed as he is one-handed, although he gets a lot more power with it. There's one or two other PBA 50 players that actually try the two-handed version, but they're not nearly to the success level that some of the young guns on the regular tour are. But the key that we don't know is we don't know where their body is going to formulate or shape as they get older down the road. Let them do that for 20 years. What is it going to do to their back? What is it going to do to their torso with the torque that they're getting on a bowling ball? But I can tell you right now, God bless every one of them, because the ones that are doing it at a high level, wow, they're pretty unbeatable when they get it figured out.
Yeah. So over the time you've been bowling, as I said, the tournaments have changed a lot. And, bowling as a sport is something that it does change over time, but from a level of popularity compared to a lot of other, what I might call mainstream sports, bowling always seems to be a little bit on the sidelines. What do you think is needed with bowling to propel it to the level of popularity that we'd all like to see, and to get those TV rights and to get a lot more TV viewing, to get bigger sponsorship, bigger tournaments, bigger prizes? Where do you think, I wouldn't say it's gone wrong, but what do you think is needed to push it in that direction?
I think it's kind of a twofold thing. The first thing is we can't get the sheer numbers into a bowling center that you can on a golf course or a tennis court or baseball or footy or, all of those other sports around the world. We can't get the masses in there. Your local bowling center gets 500 to 1,000 people at best, where some of those local facilities we just talked about, even in soccer, they're 50 to 100,000 people deep in a stadium. It's incredible when you look at that. The second thing is we haven't figured out a way to explain our sport enough to the people with the money, like the CEO of certain companies and corporations. They look at bowling as you're just throwing a ball down the lane. Well, when they look at golf, they can see the fairway, they can see the water, they can see the sand trap, and they see the green, the way that it slopes and the way that the ball curves. When they look at us or they look at bowling, the lane is always exactly the same. But what they can't see is we actually have a bunker out there as well. We have a water hole. We have trees somewhere in the fairway. Okay. That all makes a difference on how your ball rolls down a lane. We have to explain that to the outside entities that really want to come in and be a part of our sport.
But do you think that it has to be restricted to a bowling center? Because the first time I saw you, we were at the Weber Cup. And as you know, the Weber Cup was I think it was a conference center or whatever. And there was a lane specifically set up in the middle of it. And there were seats built around it. I mean, I don't know how many people were sitting in those seats, but it was several hundred.
It was cool.
Yeah. And, everybody, the atmosphere was great. Everybody got behind it. And it was the first time I'd ever been to a professional event. I didn't really know what I was watching, but I went along anyway because Ben was into bowling. And I've been bowling for many years, but I'd never done anything like that before. So, if we can do that, why is that such a rare occurrence?
Well, you can do that, but the key is it's the cost. That's what it comes down to. To construct one lane in an event center like that, and let's go on the soft side and say that maybe it was $20,000 or $30,000 to construct it, to bring in the lane, to bring in the machine, the people that are actually there setting it all up, making sure it's level and everything is not going to go anywhere, and rent the facility out, because you're going to need a facility obviously for a couple of days or a week to construct everything. But now, how do you get 100 PBA players on one lane? You have to narrow down your feed or your field. So if you bring in, and let's use a rounded number of 10, just like the Weber Cup, I think it was 8 players that came out there on the lane. If you bring in 10 players and people are sitting in the stands and they want to see their favorite player, whoever that is, okay? And they go, yeah, well, he's number 18 on the list. Why is he not here? Well, because we only have 10. Well, what about so-and-so? He's number 27 on the list. Well, we only have 10. Okay. So you really can't create that giant fan base, and that numerical number we talked about to build one lane. If you go to try to construct 10 or 20 lanes in a facility like that, at the end of the day, it's a large expense and how many people can we actually get in there? You're still limited to 1,000 or maybe even 2,000. It's not going to be 50,000 like some of the other big major sporting events.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, South Point maybe is probably the only center I can think of where you can get it's dedicated, where you can get a reasonable number of people in. I mean, you probably know somewhere else. I don't know, but
Reno.
Yeah, Reno. I've never been to Reno yet, but South Point is the one I've been to, and it's such a rare thing to have somewhere like that.
Reno and South Point are the two foremost facilities that have something like that. But when we say that, once again, you're still only looking at no more than 2,000 people that are going to get into the facility. If you go back and look at the USBC Masters, I think it was somewhere around 2008, 9, or 10, they put a bowling lane on the baseball field at Milwaukee Brewers Stadium. And that's where the Masters actually was, the TV show was conducted with the 5 guys out there. That bowling lane looked minuscule compared to the size of the field and the bleachers that are around it. So when you try to put things in perspective, I think it would be very, very hard for us to get 50,000 people in to watch an actual bowling event going on. One of the events I made a TV show in, the U.S. Open back in 93 or 94, we had it in the Joe Louis Arena. It's a hockey arena in downtown Detroit. There were 7,200 people in there watching us bowl the TV show, the top 5. It was an incredible feeling, trust me. But that one event had 7,200 people, not 50,000.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I suppose obviously it's similar with darts and maybe boxing and sort of UFC as well, where, if you're in a stadium with like 100,000 people in, like you're in a Wembley or Madison Square Garden, and you're in this huge stadium, but this ring's only maybe, 10, 20, 30 feet, in sort of in size. Mm-hmm. And they kind of rely on screens because, I mean, I've never been to the sort of the darts or like UFC, but if you're at the back of the stadium, you're not going to be, I mean, you can kind of see what's going on, but not really. So I feel like my only thing was like, my idea maybe was that you could do that and just rely on having enough screens. The only issue with bowling is you have to do it with somewhere with a roof, because if it rains, that's an issue. Where like, if it's if it's a boxing match, you might be able to get away with it, or if it's something else, you can maybe get away with it. But I mean, maybe that's an idea of, you build a bowling alley or a lane and try and do something like that. But at the same time as well, it's, who's willing to facilitate all the money that it's going to cost, because, you can rent out a stadium and build a lane to put 50,000 people in, but there's no guarantee 50,000 people are going to turn up.
Exactly. When they had it at Milwaukee Stadium there, I don't know the exact numbers there. Maybe there were 5,000 people to watch the Masters, but that stadium was already built. They had bleachers and everything set up, and you even had a giant jumbo screen TV in the center of the outfield that everybody in the stadium could see exactly was going on in front of them. And when you look at it, they had seating capacity for probably 40,000, and I believe 5,000 people showed up. So it really is it's a cost effectiveness with how many people are actually going to come to the event. Yeah.
Can you, obviously you've been in the tour since 1985. Is there any particular special memory that you have of an event or something that happened that I wouldn't say you consider to be a highlight, but something that particularly sticks in your mind that if you had to pick out that special memory, what it would be?
Well, I'm going to say this. You never, ever forget your first title. It doesn't matter who it is. I'll say, Ben, I hope that happens for you on tour at some point later on in your lifetime. But when I actually won my first title, we were tied going into the break through 5 frames. And the gentleman I was bowling with, he was not a titleist. So neither one of us were a titleist. One of us was going to win that day. And when we went to commercial, I looked at him, I shook his hand. I go, hey, if you win, congratulations. Good luck at the Tournament of Champions. And if I happen to be fortunate to win, do me a favor, do your best and get back here into the winner's circle sometime soon. I won that day. That gentleman congratulated me. 3 weeks later, he won his first title. So it was just funny or coincidence the way that it happens there. But the biggest thing that I would say for me happened to be the year I won the world championship, and I was fortunate to beat Jason Belmonte. We had a big giant storm in the East Coast that came up the coast. It was called Superstorm Sandy. Ben, you're a little young to remember that. Maybe your dad might get a little bit of it. But the vast majority of that storm hit literally within about a half an hour to 45 minutes of where I live. And it was mass chaos up and down the New Jersey coast there. And we were without power for 3 days and trees were all over the place. But I didn't know if I was going to be able to go out to the World Championship because I couldn't get anywhere. And then finally, I had missed 2 of the practice sessions. Lights came back on. I looked at my wife. I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "Yeah, we'll be fine. You know, you can take and go." And I flew out there. I snuck into the last 2 practice sessions. And then lo and behold, we bowled the tournament. I qualified 24th. That was the big thing. Only 24 guys advanced, and I snuck in. And then I kept whittling my way through the field, and I got all the way to the top 5. I snuck in at 5th place. Now another big storm hits the East Coast, and we get knocked out of power again. And now they got snow, 12 inches of snow. So I set it up for my wife and kids to come out to watch me bowl in the tournament on the TV show the following day. And I went 5th and worked my way all the way up the line. And then I beat Jason Belmonte for the title. So that one event unquestionably will be something I will never, ever forget. And for that matter, my kids remember it too.
Yeah, I'm a great story. I remember Sandy because I was actually at JFK when that was about to hit, and they were trying to get every plane in that airport into the air. And I think I was one of the last planes to leave that airport, so I just dodged that. And I did the same again earlier on this week. I was in Texas. I was in Houston at about just over a week ago, and I just left just in time before the hurricane hit. So I got a pretty good record of doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, you understand the rocky road, getting up in the air.
Yeah. You've got to get up there because if you don't get a second chance. So, talking about winning a title, talk us through what actually happens when you win a major title, especially your first one. What goes on behind the scenes after you're seen on TV with a trophy, you get interviewed on TV. What happens after that? How does your life change after your first major title?
Well, I mean, I've always been a very humble guy. I'm not going to let the highs and the lows affect the person that I am or the person that I want to be. So, when you achieve success, especially in the major title category, you're going to get more people that are going to call you, or somebody's going to want you to show up or do an appearance or talk to a group of people here and there. But I have no problem doing it as long as I can fit it into my schedule. But after that day is done, when you're done doing all of your press obligations and media, everything that you need to take care of, I can look right at my wife or my family and say, "Okay, what do we want to do now?" And they laugh and they go, but Dad, or my wife will look and go, "You just won the world championship." And I go, "I understand that, but I'm your husband and I am their dad. So now we as a family need to do something here that we can continue to remember what we're doing."
Does your wife bowl?
She bowled on a ladies tour for about 3 years. She fully understands it. I think her best finish was about 10th on the ladies tour. Unfortunately, she never won, but I believe that she is sincerely winning, and she's a driving force behind all of us.
I mean, did she get into bowling because of you, or did you meet her through bowling?
No, she was into bowling way before me. She was on a national college championship team. She was the most valuable player the year that they won the college team. She bowled for Wichita State, and it would have been somewhere, you could go back and YouTube it. I'm sure you might find it, somewhere 1990 or 91 when she was bowling for Wichita State that they won the national title.
Because you have a real bowling family there.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So I just want to, obviously, your son Brandon's over in Korea. You've had quite a bit of history yourself, Bohn, on your national team. Tell us what that's been like. You've won as well. You won gold in the team event in the 2019 bowling championship for the seniors. So you've had your taste of success. Both individually, but as a team on your national level. How was that?
Well, I've been very fortunate to bowl for a lot of different things throughout the world. Obviously, for the most part, you're bowling singles competition, and there's money on the line. But there is nothing that can compare to wearing the red, white, and blue or representing your country. And I would hope that same opportunity happens for you, Ben. When you have your country colors on your back, the meaningful or the meaning behind that next shot that you're going to throw, it brings a chill to me to think about that, because you're getting up there trying to present pride for your country. And then you get up there and maybe you achieve success, and now you're standing on a podium listening to your national anthem, and you know that you're a reason why they're playing it. So, I mean, I get chills thinking about it when I look at my own arms, and I can feel it in my body right now. I hope that you can too. But it starts within the Olympics itself. Or let's say, furthermore, it starts with any of the military around the world. And it doesn't matter what country you're representing. Every one of us have a national anthem. And those, men and ladies that represent us and allow us to live the life of freedom that we do, God bless each and every one of them, because they're living a real life battle. We, you and me, are playing a game at the end of the day. We're just very fortunate that we have the opportunity to do something that we truly love to do. But when you feel and hear your national anthem, there's not really a better feeling than that. I can tell you that.
Yeah. I mean, so I think for me, it's something that I've been agonizingly close to for the past year or so. But I'm confident that in the next year or so that I'll make it to that place. But you've bowled obviously PBA events, you've bowled international events for your country, but you've also bowled out of your sort of your country and other events. How do they compare? Is obviously you have the pride of wearing your national team colours, but does it, like the actual competition, how different is that?
The competition, it differs on every level. When you come over to certain international events, I can tell you right now, I've bowled in Japan an endless amount of times. I've bowled here in Korea on some of their professional events. I've obviously bowled over in Europe. Fortunately, I won the Ball Master one year. I won another European event that was part of the European Bowling Tour. I forget what of the countries that it was that I was in, but I've enjoyed each and every one of them. But the level of competition differs or varies depending where you're going. Because let's face it, not all of the players can get to a certain event. Okay. Yes, we may have the best bowlers in the world that bowl on the PBA Tour. And I think that's proven for the fact of how many international players continue to come into the PBA Tour each and every single year that we have it going on there. But I am not going to take anything away from the European bowlers when I go over to bowl EBT or the Ballmaster. The Ballmaster is Finland's version of bowling's U.S. Open. There's no question about it with the amount of bowlers that they get and the types of bowlers that show up there. But when I come over to Japan, or if I come over to Korea, just to name those two events as well, they have their own professional tour, and they're on a level that is far above the average bowler for their country. And by no means does that mean that we're going to walk over them and become victorious.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's any, do you feel there's any difference between bowling in Asia and bowling in like the Western world, in Europe and the US?
No, not really. They're all slightly different. They want to acquire power. They want to have their ball shape and go through the pins, obviously to knock over as many pins as possible. But I think that if you bring a knife out and go to cut something, the knife is extremely sharp on the PBA Tour because those guys have bowled on so many different conditions, and the level of competition, the bar is so high. Okay. whereas that bar might be a notch lower in the European tour. But the knife is not quite as sharp, but it's still going to cut through what it needs to. Okay. And then that notch may come down a little bit more over in Japan because those bowlers don't have the power that the Americans have. And a lot of that is based on what's available technology-wise for us in America. We have all the bowling balls at our disposal. But then with the lane conditions and the different lane surfaces and the amount of practice that those players put in there, they're all playing off of one another. Just like I told you earlier that I play off with my sons. When we sit there and watch, you want to try to get better and better. So I don't believe in giving you anything. You got to work at it. And then the same thing happens here in Korea. In Korea, about 20 or 25 years ago, they started to learn how to hook a bowling ball, but they weren't very good at it. They were getting all over the place. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, the Korean professional bowlers, they definitely have created power. And a lot of them now, each and every day, are getting sharper and sharper at it. So they're a force to be reckoned with on the lanes.
Mm-hmm. So I just want to ask, I could be wrong in saying this, but I'm sure I've watched a PBA telecast and you were commentating it. What was that like, and how did that come about?
To commentate the PBA telecast?
Yeah,
it's a lot different being behind the scenes than it is being in front of the scenes. You know, you're talking about the player or players that are out on the lanes, and you're trying to bring that story home to you, the fans. Okay, if I'm sitting up there talking about Oscar Palermo, or if I'm talking about Dominic Barrett, I want you to understand what he's going through right now, this moment on the lanes. Whether it's good or bad, I got to bring you that feeling. And I believe that's what happens or tries to happen in every PBA event or televised event that you watch.
Mm-hmm. So another thing as well. So how, you've seen bowling change a lot in the time that you've been bowling, but how do you think over the next sort of 10 years it's gonna develop and evolve?
Well, I think the biggest thing is going to be the two-handed sensation. Bowling has evolved. It went from not much hook into the 60s and 70s. Mark Roth and Marshall Holman started to create power and hook a bowling ball more than ever. That power was transcended into Pete Weber and what he could do with a bowling ball, rolled into Amleto Monicelli, what he could do with a bowling ball, which turned into being one of the greatest players of all time, Walter Ray Williams. Although he didn't have the power like the other players, he definitely had the hand-eye coordination that he could make things happen on the lanes. And the biggest thing with him was sheer guts. If he needed 30 in the 10th to beat you, he believed in his heart. He already seen all 30 pins fall over. You were just going to sit and watch it happen. Okay. But then the latest grave or the latest big thing that's transcended into bowling is, like we talked about, the two-handed sensation. I believe that you're going to see one by one on the PBA Tour, you're going to see the one-handed bowlers continue to drop, and you're going to see the two-handed bowlers continue to rise. Okay, it doesn't mean that they're all going to be eliminated, but you're definitely going to see that happen. So I'll just say, thankfully so, I've got one son that throws it two-handed and one that throws it one-handed, and they're both on different sides of the lane. So I feel like I've got a chance every time.
Yeah. So I think you're one of the few bowlers who have been able to bowl for, decades and decades, and, not only continue to sustain your success, but to be relatively fit and, injury free. What advice would you sort of give to people who are maybe current professional bowlers now, or just bowlers in general, or people looking to get to the professional tour? What advice could you give them towards having a good longevity and being able to bowl as long as you possibly can?
I think that my game is pretty simple. There's not a lot of intricacies. There's not a lot of big, giant moving parts that go along. And I've tried to maintain it in a way that I can repeat a shot again and again and again so that I understand the lane. When you watch the big power games for some of the players, and I'm certainly not going to take anything away from Jason Belmonte, but I don't know where his body's going to be 5 or 10 years down the road. I got to believe, just like any of us, we've all gone through aches and pains. Believe it or not, Ben, you wouldn't realize it, but I hurt my wrist right here when I was 19 bowling in a PBA stop as an amateur. To this day, my wrist still hurts from time to time when I try to do too much to a bowling ball. But I learned by that. So I know my limitations, and I try to stay within my own little circle. And it's okay to branch outside of it, but don't branch outside of it that you're going to hurt yourself. And that's one thing that I've always tried to live by. So as long as you keep your game simple enough that you can repeat it, play it on the highest level that you can, and know that you're, for the most part, knock on wood, injury-free when you're done, then you can get up and do the same thing again the next day.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, one of the final questions I've got is, so if you had to give the best piece of advice you could to someone like me who's, obviously aspiring to get to the PBA tour in the future, or someone who's maybe just starting out on the brink of it, or even someone who's just started bowling, what advice could you give them to have the chance at the best career possible?
You're going to laugh, but I'm going to give you a word to live by. It's a phrase. The word KISS. KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Okay? And you please laugh at that, because that's exactly what it's meant by. Okay? You can be as complex with your game as you want to, but at the end of the day, it has to be simple enough for you to repeat it. Jason Belmonte, he has a complex game, but it's very simple for him to repeat it. That's what allows him to be the player that he is. But no matter how powerful your ball is, no matter how many strikes you throw, our sport is always going to be strikes and spares. And if you can remember that and accept the fact that not every ball you throw is going to strike, and always learn how to fill your frames and make your spares, you have a chance to obtain greatness and get as high as you want to get.
Mm-hmm. So the second last question I've got for you, Parker, is when you've left bowling behind and you've moved on, what's the legacy that you hope to leave behind where if someone mentions your name, the first thought that comes to someone's mind is, oh, this is what Parker was like?
I hope that they're going to remember that I was a great player on the lanes, but equally as important, I want them to say he was a really great person off the lanes. Okay? I've always lived by that rule. I treat people the way that I want to be treated in return. I don't care how many pins you knock over, good or bad. I'm still going to be there. I'm going to do what I can to answer your question, and I hope that you're going to be there to answer my question and help me along the way. And together, I say this, in this world, we can be together, that we can go, the sky is the limit.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So, and the final question I've got for you is, it's a really important one for me, because without this, you wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. Because obviously, Tom Clark helped get us in contact. And, so my question to you would be, who could you help recommend to help me bring on the podcast next that you think would be a good person to bring on?
I think somebody like Jason Couch would be somebody really good to bring on. Possibly Tommy Jones, guys of that nature that have had international experience, that your fan base, the people that listen to your podcast, would really, truly love to listen to and be a part of. They are players that I would think that I could reach out to. I don't know where their schedule fits with yours. I know you and me had the trick trying to connect up here right now, but I think that players like that will add longevity to your podcast. And I think it's a win-win for everybody involved.
Awesome.
Parker, it's been great. We do appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule there in South Korea. So we're not going to hold you up any longer. We're going to let you get back to the action on the lanes, but we really do appreciate everything you've done and the advice that you've given. There's been some really good pieces of advice there, and we'll certainly remember it. So thank you for your time, and you never know, we might see you in your training center there in New Jersey at some point.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll look forward to it. The invitation is there for both you and your son to come one day. Please don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. You've got my email as well. But until then, do me a favor. Please take care of all of the bowling fans there in Europe, especially in your hometown area, your country there. from my heart, I've been there a couple of times. I've loved it, endured it, and I will look forward to possibly getting that extended invitation sometime again down the road.
Yeah, if you come to the UK, just let us know. That'll be great. So Parker Bohn III, we appreciate your time tonight. That's the end of this 21st episode of this Spare Time podcast, sponsored by ADR Wear, who did all of our attire tonight. If you like what you've seen, if you like and subscribe on the channel, and we'll be back for the 22nd podcast with somebody else. I don't know who or when, but we will be back. From me, Nigel, bye, and him,
Ben.
bye. See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Have a good night, everybody.
Awesome. Have a great night.